right, is the death lineup. Here we're talking about the Warriors. They open up their preseason last weekend against the Lakers. There's been some Klay Thompson talk. There's been just discussion about goofy preseason stuff like, what is the ESPN list called?
The top 100 or something.
Whatever their top 100 is called. So let's start, Bri, with let's start with the first preseason game, because Chris Paul, who we have rooted against pretty much our entire lives, at least as far as when the Warriors were good, they finally put him in uniform. He was out there starting front and center. I thought he looked pretty good, pretty spry. And I don't know if we know enough about the mix with that starting lineup. Obviously, Draymond wasn't there. But overall, what were your thoughts on how well he played, how well he meshed? Did he look like a Warriors player to you?
I feel like I'm going to be saying this a lot today. So I know, because you could say it for either way. It's kind of like Summer League, where if a player does really well in Summer League, you want to just say hey, it's just Summer League. Don't get too high on that. But if a player does really bad in Summer League, it's like, okay, it's just Summer League. Don't get too high on that. I feel like there is some similarities between preseason, but when it comes to a player like Chris Paul, who's a very smart player, been in the league forever, top 10, top 5, top 7 point guard of all time. I don't really know where he falls. I think you could start to actually see that stuff and be like, okay, I know both teams weren't going 100%, but you could see it, right? You could see how it could work. And I feel like that's something that we were a little concerned about, is just how it would look. Just their top 5, their starting lineup is a top lineup in the NBA by net rating. But how would Chris Paul look with Steph and Klay? Because there are going to be lineups, even though that's not going to be the starting lineup, there are going to be lineups that features all 3 of them. And I think a hard part was actually seeing how that would work. And Sunday or Saturday, I saw it. And I feel like I can't just say, well, it was just preseason. I think there is something there where just smart basketball players who, have been playing for a long time, savvy veterans, there's something about watching them work that it just I could see why they thought this would be a good fit. Is that how you felt?
Offensively, it looks like it's just going to be
seamless.
Yeah, good basketball. They're going to be in the spot.
What I noticed, sorry, I was just really quick. Something I wanted to add was, I don't know if you saw this, but I think it was at least the first 10 shots that I was really paying attention to. All of them were good shots. Good, even though Klay was hucking up the first 6 of them, all of them were open. All of them were kind of rhythm shots that I feel like he would take, along with all the other ones everyone was taking. They're all good open shots created by Steph's off ball, created by Klay's off ball, created by Steph's on ball, created by CP's on ball. There was just so much stuff that they have the opportunity to throw at defenses because they have to worry about so many different things. And I thought that it was just, you could see it. That's all I could say. You could see it.
Yeah, and plus defenses aren't really going to give you anything yet, so they should. I hope that they were able to get open looks. I think the thing that is going to be a test is how they attack them defensively, obviously, especially when Steph and CP are in the backcourt together. There were moments offensively where you could tell Chris did not really want to shoot. He wanted to make sure everybody had their touch before he put up a shot. And I do wonder, like if you're thinking about how to play these guys, do you just give Chris Paul when Draymond just kind of pulls back on a guy and doesn't even guard him and sort of forces him to think about the shooting, and then when he does have to pass, you don't have that defender right there, so it's a little bit of a zone. I kind of wonder, because of all the shooting that they do have, if you play Chris Paul a little bit lighter than you would and you make him think about shooting a little bit more, I don't know, that would be an interesting defense. But
I don't think so, man. I feel like you're kind of talking about how Draymond would make people in the corner second guess their ability to shoot the ball, like he did with Harrison Barnes in the Kings series, like he did with Grant Williams in the Celtics series.
It's how you would guard Rondo, right? Rondo was such a good ball handler and playmaker and a physical player that he would, he would want to go to the if he penetrated, he's creating stuff. So if you take away the penetration and you make him shoot the outside shot, that's kind of the way he got defended later in his career.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul's a good shooter, but over the last few years, he has been reluctant to pull. Now, my hope would be that he would dribble into an 18-footer and then shoot that all day because he can make that shot in his sleep. But I just wonder, with all of the spacing and all of the outside shooting that the Warriors do have, how would you attack it? And I think one way would be to kind of make Chris Paul a scorer. And I don't know, that's just something you're not going to see in the preseason that you may see, later in the season as you get closer to the playoffs. And it could be a playoff defense, like making this guy a shooter and a scorer versus doing what he wants to do, which is set guys up and get easy buckets for his teammates.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that comes with like a player's indecisiveness, is that a defense will take advantage of that indecisiveness, but I feel like Chris is anything but indecisive. So I think he's a very decisive player. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure that instance is going to come up where it's like, okay, Chris Paul's doing a 2-man game. That's like his patented stuff, but like, is he at the point in his career where he wants to go do that 8 times in a row versus giving it to some of the best shooters in the planet? So we'll see. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's not anything that we would see early in the season. It's a really sort of strategic, last possession kind of basketball. But I mean, I think a lot of people saw the last few postseasons. Chris didn't shoot it terribly well, and yeah, some of it was, he's hurt, and hopefully
he's not too far removed from like a 14 for 14 game. Like that happened in 2021, I think, or maybe 21. Whatever he played the Pelicans in the first round, I believe he had like a game where he went 14 for 14, perfect from the field. So I would like, I don't know, that guy still feels there. I mean, I was actually thinking about that series when you were mentioning that, where the Pelicans, like, they couldn't get away with putting Valanciunas because CP would just put him in the pick and roll and shoot over him every single time. And they're like, okay, let's try Larry Nance and go small ball 5. Same thing happened every single time. And I don't know. I think there's that guy's still there from CP. What was the first thing? The first thing is what the Warriors started off like 0 for 3 and we couldn't get anything going. CP said, okay, I'm just going to run to the right corner, but as a mid-range and fade away, and boom, bucket. Like, I don't think we'll have a lot of stagnant offense with this team, with this guy. Like, it happens a lot with the Warriors where everyone's just kind of settling for threes, especially when Wiggs wasn't there to start doing his mid-range stuff. But now that we have CP who's going to be doing that mid-range stuff, I feel like we're not going to see as much of some stagnated offense that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, he was down 4 points a game last year from his career average in points. His overall shooting was down, though his 3-pointers were they were similar. They were a slight tick up from what he was in his career. So his numbers are okay. I just the thing that I worry about is he is ball dominant, right? Like, he likes the basketball in his hands, and sometimes he's going to end up with the basketball in his hands for to hit important shots. And I just don't I just have seen him in moments over the years where he looks like he doesn't really want to be that guy. And if I'm the other team, I try and force him to be that guy, right? So if you look at last year's playoff series against the Clippers, he had a pretty decent series. Didn't shoot it terrifically well, but he did play a lot of minutes, and that did not bode well for him in the Denver
next
series
because he got hurt.
He averaged like 38 or 39 minutes a game. So yeah, so maybe that's really tough to kind of measure. But if you go back to the Dallas series, in the year before, a series in which they were supposed to win that series, right? The first 2 games that they do win, and he's a plus 27 combined in those first 2 games. He's like Chris Paul of old. He's got 20. He's 19 and what is he? 19 and 3, or his assists aren't up. But the next game, he's like 28 and 8. And then the last 5 games of those series, he's 12 points, 5 points, 7 points, 13 points, 10 points. So something happened there where he's not shooting the basketball. And so that is a small worry, but the way that the Warriors attack some of these teams is a little bit different. So my hope is that he doesn't get into these spaces where he just decides like, okay, I'm not going to be the man, and maybe he won't have to. Maybe that's where you have Steph but again, when you have the ball in your hands a lot, it's going to be him and Draymond bringing up the basketball. Not bad defense for the other team to kind of play off and go, okay, you're bringing it up. I'm going to need to help on whoever you pass it to, so I'm pulling back. It's just something I was thinking about when I watched him.
Yeah.
What about the rest of the fits? And we'll go through some of these guys here. I think the big game was obviously Kuminga. He looked good, but he's supposed to look good in this scenario, right? He was 4 from 8 from 3. He looked explosive. He looked fast in a game where nobody's really playing too much defense. He just looks like the best athlete on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Loved watching what he was doing because he's just so big. He's so big and he's so long, and it just looks like he could get to wherever he wants at any point. Did you see anything different, or did you see something more of what you were looking for from him? Because if people were looking for him to be sad and a little uptight, he wasn't. He's like, he's
I don't think I was
up,
expecting
man.
him to be a sad guy.
Well, I mean, what about his sad tweets from the playoffs last year, and the stuff about Steve Kerr saying, dude, he doesn't rebound. That's why we can't play him. Like, for a young player to take that feedback, he could come in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, but that did not look like Kuminga. He looked like he was just normal, regular Kuminga.
Yeah. To be honest, I have a hard time identifying who's a good rebounder and who's not, especially like I would have thought Kuminga was like an okay rebounder, but now he's like especially putting an emphasis on it in his while he's working with the training staff and stuff. But I think what I saw with JK was like the very first point he scored was he just floated in the air and I think made a layup over AD or something. I think that was what it was. And what I've noticed in the past with JK is I have a hard time identifying the correct terms for what I'm about to say, but there are these different types of really bouncy athletes where you look at a guy like Jalen Green, you look at a guys like the Thompson twins. Those guys just feel like they float in the air and they can just seamlessly just like move and contort their body and still end up with like a crazy dunk or like a really cool layup. With JK and like Jaden Ivey, and they more feels like powerful athletes. Like they're going up and they're just trying to dunk it on you. Like they're not necessarily trying to change hands in the air to try and, you know, make a smooth looking contested layup or something. Like they're just trying to go hard, fast, and powerful and try to dunk the ball. That layup to me from JK was, I feel like, something he would in the past try to dunk. In the Sacramento Kings game, even, I remember there was a big play where he already wasn't getting minutes. He finally gets put in. He gets absolutely blocked by Alex Len at the rim. It's because he tried to dunk the damn ball. If he had tried to go around him with a layup, maybe that was a different thing. Maybe he gets more playing time. Maybe he plays in the Lakers series. You never know. But with this first play right away is just him swift layup over one of the best shot blockers in the league. I think it was AD that he scored it over. But to me, that was like, oh wow, like that not only looked like not only did you choose to lay the ball up over dunking it, that also looked like the smooth athlete that I'm kind of talking about, where you're like that 1% athlete that could just jump from anywhere and still end up at the rim.
Yeah.
That I feel like he wasn't in the past. And of course, the 3-point shooting, you know, we talked about it, 38% last year, but was that real? Was that a real 38%?
I mean, it was a wide open 38% because he was the guy that they were sagging off of last year, going like, we want him to shoot it because if he doesn't, then he's going to create some chaos near the rim and we'd rather have him shoot it. So hopefully he gets those opportunities again, and then he does make them, and then they start playing him up a little closer. When I watch for rebounding, really what I try to, like, if you watch Kevon, I mean, it's literally his job, but he never shies away from a box out, right? When the shot goes up, he's looking for who's near him so he can put a body on. A lot of times what happens with some of these guys is
they get lazy. They ball watch.
They watch, and shot goes up, and
That was Wiseman.
instead of racing to a spot to box somebody out, they try to use their athleticism a little bit, and they try and jump over guys. But I would look for, with Kuminga, I would just look to see if he's trying to box people out and trying to get bodies on people, because his athleticism is going to get him some rebounds. Like you said, he looks like he's okay at it because he's so athletic. He's going to get some, but it's really an effort thing. It's really like what's that last ditch grit of an athlete? Like, certain guys, and a lot of times you don't want guys to be in the middle boxing people out, but we can compare it to who's the best player on the team. Steph Curry gets a lot of rebounds because he will put his body on the line, and that's just really what it is Kuminga wanting to get in there and mix it up, knowing that it's going to help the team, rather than him just wanting to get on a fast break. So that it's kind of the difference to me. All right, a couple of these other guys. I always want to say that when I watch Moses Moody play, it looks like he's not doing that much, but then you look at his box score, he ended up with 15 points. He didn't shoot he shot 3 okay, 2 of 6. Rebounds, he had 4. He just still looks a little on the slow side to me. Like I was hoping maybe we'd see a little bit more bounce, a little bit more explosion, but he looks like the same guy. And in a sense, that's a good thing. But in a sense, I do wonder, or in another sense, I do wonder if when it comes to what he does well versus what some of these other guys like Saric, like Kuminga, are going to do well. It is another. It is a wing spot for them to find minutes for. But it didn't look like he took advantage of the game in the same way that Kuminga took advantage of the game. Different from when we saw him last year. Was it last year in the summer league, the first summer league game, where he was like all over the court? And when we went to see them in Santa Cruz, maybe it was Santa Cruz, when he's just like all over the court, you're like, okay, that's the best player in the game.
Yeah.
I wanted to see a little bit more of that version of Moody, but
I wonder if the Warriors even want to see that version of Moody, in the sense, like when we saw Moody, it was like, oh my God, like he's creating a shot every opportunity he gets.
He's hitting the floor. He's diving for ball. Like, the thing is in this game, and I don't mean when he's in the rotation, when he's like the third guy off the bench. I mean, late in the game, it's like him and Kuminga, and then you really have to go down your Warriors roster card to figure out who some of these other guys are. Like in those moments, Kuminga was like, if I get it, I'm shooting or I'm driving. And Moody would get it, and he's like, should I take this guy? And then by then it was already too late. That's just that mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I see what you're talking about. I mean, I think it is fun when Moody and JK are out there, because I feel like even though Moody sometimes is a little slow, I still think he's one of our best athletes, in the sense of, like, I feel like you notice it defensively when him and JK are out there, when they're flying around and just like, when we have our starting lineup out there, it's like, okay, that guy got by, he's just going to shoot the ball. And then when JK and Moody are there, it's like, okay, how did they contest that? Or I feel like they're just flying around the court, and it could be a little chaotic, but I feel like sometimes it is fun to see that chaos. And I think I think it is the youth and the athleticism that both of them had that. Not everything went well in this preseason game. A lot of things did. I was happy to see a lot, like the starting lineup looking good together, CP looking good, AK having a good game, Pajemski having a good game, Moses Moody on the stat sheet having a good game. But there's obviously things that these guys need to work on. Like you said, Moody looks like the same guy since the Dallas series, which I don't think is a bad player, but he's not someone who's like trying to steal the starting job like JK feels like he goes up there and tries to do, even though it's not going to happen.
Was there a most disappointing player in that game? And it's only one game, small sample size. They have 5 of these to figure it out. I have one specifically, but I think that you could probably name 2 or 3 guys in this that you wanted to see something from.
I didn't think Lester did anything special. Lester Quinones. I didn't think Trace Jackson Davis did anything special.
That would be the one for me. He had a James Wiseman box score. And this
Is
is
like minus 30.
no, not that kind of box score, but it was like he was out there and you could tell that he's a pretty good athlete. He's defending hard, but he was 0 of 1 shooting, pulled 1 rebound. He did have 2 steals and he had 2 blocks. So he was active on that end. But, again, he's in there late when it's just a bunch of scorecard guys. And I would have liked to see him do, Christian Wood was like, oh, I'm getting the ball and I'm going right through this dude, which he should. He's a vet. He shouldn't be playing that late in this game. But, but yeah, I mean, it was a little deer in headlightsy, I think. But you know what I didn't realize? He is, I think his dad is Dale Davis, the former Indiana Pacer who played with Reggie Miller in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I mean, that would make sense geographically, right? He went to school in Indiana. I think he's from Indiana.
And his pops was, 6'9", 6'10", defender, mean. Back when you could get away with way more stuff in the NBA than you can get now. So but he did not play like that. He doesn't have that same intensity of his dad. He's a little bit more calm, I guess. But I just want to see more of him. We didn't really even get to see him that much because he didn't play in the summer league games that we saw. And I know he did play in the summer league in Vegas.
Like the very last game, though.
But yeah, it wasn't. He didn't play a ton, so he's someone
he got called inactive. Like while we were at the game, we got the tweet right.
Yeah,
in Sacramento, we were so sad.
I
know what we should talk about. Are you about to say it? Are you about to say the Croatian sensation?
I was about to say Saric. It was almost like he came out, he pulled up, hit a couple threes, and Kerr's like, "All right, I already know. Like, you just relax."
I think for me, what I thought was really cool to see is the passing. I feel like a lot of EuroLeague bigs have that where they're just like so fundamentally with their pump fakes and their passing, and obviously Jokic is 50 times a player any of these guys are, but I feel like a lot of them, like Vucevic, even like Valanciunas, there's just like a lot of like fundamental, just like pump fake, play make. Defensively, like they're savvy. They know athletically they have no chance, so they just poke it, they strip them, and I thought we just saw like a full presentation of that from Saric, and I totally see why he fits. Like I think he fits better than Bjelica, just because of his willingness, not his willingness because he knows his role, but just how it felt like he was a really good pinpoint passer. Like he made some passes in the lane where I was like, oh wow, like that looks, and what do all Warriors just want in their centers? Like there's like 3 things, right? They just want you to play defense, set screens, and pass the ball. That's all you need to be a successful Warrior center. And I feel like
maybe catch the ball too, Kevon Looney.
Yeah. But I think he, I think Saric at least feels like 2 out of the 3 of those, and we'll see, defensively. But I thought he was great, and he brings another element to Warriors bigs who we've only had a handful of times with Bjelica, and really, like, is that it in the dynasty years that I could think of? Or Omari Spellman, right? A shooting big, a big who could stretch the floor.
David West a little bit, but he was more mid-range. He's more mid-range.
Maurice Spates.
Mo Spates. Yeah, there you go.
That was one.
The thing, the thing about it also is he knows Chris Paul a little bit more than everyone else does. So if he's in that rotation in that second team, he's gonna have that chemistry with CP immediately. So it'll be fun to watch. I think it's gonna be good. I just hope that fans don't have like this expectation of, this guy's gonna be 15 and 7 every night. He's not even gonna be. He's probably not playing that many minutes to get those numbers for one.
No way. 15 and 7, Jesus.
But yeah, he's a good player, and he was a high draft pick, so he should be. We should have decent expectations.
He was Philly, right? He was like the Philly pick that then he just didn't go to the Philadelphia 76ers. Then he just continued to play overseas because of something with a contract with a team over there. I feel like that was him.
I would have to look it up. I don't remember. All right, so a couple of other guys we'll look at, and then we'll move on. Jerome Robinson. Now we're talking about guys who were trying to fit that 14th slot.
I thought he was okay.
Jerome Robinson was okay. A little bit of who was the point guard in the
Don't say summer league because I have no clue.
No. The season before the Warriors became
Kai
really
Bowman.
good. No. They beat the Heat on TV.
Mario Chalmers on the Heat?
No, I'm talking about on the Warriors. Who
beat the Heat on when LeBron was still on Miami, right?
Like LeBron's first year of Miami.
The Warriors point guard?
Yeah.
Jarrett Jack?
Jarrett Jack. He looked a little Jarrett Jacky.
He's a bald guy.
And he's got the headband. And he's small. I thought he played okay. He had that nice little they were in that nice little inbounds play for him. He missed the layup, then he got it back. Rudy Gay looked stiff, like
I thought he looked better than what I would have expected. Like I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting.
See, because he's historically a 3, and he was not running out there like a 3. So
yeah,
obviously
he's a 4
he's
now.
older.
Yeah.
He's a 4 and he's a 4-5.
Yeah,
I think on this team.
I think you're right.
And he was actually trying to get guys to like do stuff. He's like, all right, passing the ball, he's pointing, and then he's like trying to slip screens and get up. And these guys are just wanting to get their own stuff going. I thought that was kind of funny. But I want to see Rudy Gay with, not the
guys
like
actually,
on the bench. Yeah. I want to see how he would. I want to see what Kerr thinks he could bring to see if he's got a shot. We barely got to see Usman Garuba. He only played 5 minutes.
I think he had like a block or a steal that led to JK's dunk on the other end or something like that.
He was like D'ing people up all of full court. And
I think he needs to stay as a 2-way. I think the Jerome Robinson spot is up for grabs. Like if our guy Gee, takes that spot, but I think Usman needs to stay, and then obviously I do think Lester needs to stay, even though I was pretty unimpressed by his performance.
And the one guy we did not get to see, Rodney Magruder, he did not play. Corey Joseph also did not play. And because Corey Joseph did not play, we did get to see a lot more of Pods than we would have seen. And I thought he looked better than he looked in the summer league.
I just felt like the shot was falling, really. Like, did you think there was much else that he was doing? Maybe more decisiveness?
He was just forcing it so much in summer league, as if because they're trying to win those games, and he's trying to get to the rim, and he's trying to create for
others.
He's
a focal point too.
Yeah. He just fit in. He fit in in a way that he's like, okay, I'm going to draw and kick, and that's what I'm going to try and do. And I thought he looked good. He's going to have a problem with athleticism, though, for sure. So I think that's just going to be an issue. All right. So we have they play again on Friday. So later tonight, as far as the audio folks who are listening to this, they play later tonight against the Lakers, and then Sunday against the Kings, and then they finish off the preseason. I think it's Kings and Spurs. And did you notice that Fitz and Azubuike got Wemby's name wrong during the telecast?
Oh God, what'd they say?
Wembanyama. Both of them. I think Fitz did it, and then Kalena was like, "Uh-oh, did he get it wrong, or did I?" And then he just went with what Fitz said.
That's like a flashback for them, because remember when there was they had some heat during a Denver Nuggets game in the championship year for 2022, where they called basically Austin Rivers a nepo baby, and I think and then I think they also said something insensitive about Facundo Campazzo.
Oh man!
And is he French? Because if he's French, and then they mess up Wemby too, they just have something against French people.
Why don't people just call him Wemby?
I don't think Fitz does Fitz does do nicknames for the Warriors guys, but even remember the Thunder games when Fitz would be like, and that's Jalen Williams, Arkansas,
from Santa Clara.
Jalen Williams, Santa Clara. Just do J-Dub and J-Will. That's the nicknames everyone knows. Is the J-Will is Arkansas, J-Dub is Santa Clara. But no, Jalen Williams, Santa Clara.
They'll figure it out, because you're not going to be able to not figure out. It's going to start rolling off the tongue a lot easier as he plays. So I just found it interesting, because it's really hard, because the first couple times that I said his name, I could not get the M in there. The N is so much easier for whatever reason. But yeah, it is noticeable when they screw it up now. All right. Klay Thompson was with Anthony Slater. I didn't actually hear the interview, but I read Slater's write-up. Klay seems like he's just in a really good place. He seems like he's comfortable. He's almost like I could tell he's frustrated about that Lakers series, but he also thinks that he had a really good season overall. And
which
I
I think
think
we agree with.
we agree with it. You would like to see the shot selection a little bit better because his overall field goal percentage was way down from normal Klay. That's the only thing that was really his 3-point attempts were up and his 2-point percentage was down. And I think that's just a lot. Some of that was early in the season and all the way through the season. He's just tired legs sometimes and he's still shooting a lot. But I think he's going to come into camp in better shape for one. And he's really comfortable in his persona as a basketball player. Last year, I think he was really trying to prove some stuff still. And he doesn't really need to do that. Like the best version of Klay is when I think about the best version of Klay is when he's asked when Kevin Durant joins his team, what are you going to do? If your shots go down, he's like, my shots are not going down. I'm shooting the exact same I always shoot. And he did. He had his field goals per game were like exactly the same with Durant and without Durant. That is the Klay that is content and he's confident in himself and he doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. And we saw last year flashing the rings at Devin Booker for whatever reason. He was at that moment, that the edge of, I'm not the young guy anymore and I have to hold my ground. I think he's just going to come into this season much more free, much more comfortable. And not to say that he's going to have this crazy big season because he had a good season last year, but I think we're going to see better numbers instead of some of those 2 for 12 shooting from three-pointers. And people are like, this dude is just chucking so hard.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to have to do that. I don't think as much this year.
Yeah. I think we kind of said that after the PG podcast too that he was on, that it kind of seems like he's just in reminiscing, reflecting Klay. And
yeah,
I like that Klay. And
you know what? You know why though that is such a smart way to be. And this is Steph too. They know what's coming in the twilight of their career because they saw their pops. They saw their pops as get older and then have to adjust. And now they're both way better than their popses were. Though Michael was a number 1 draft pick. Like Michael, Clay's dad was like, top of the food chain. He had and he became a role player to win titles with the Lakers. But they know what it's going to be about, and they know that they're going to be able to extend their careers unlike their fathers because of the technology and the training and the dieting and all that stuff. And the money is so good. But they know that they kind of know what to expect as you get older. And that's just the benefit of being a son of a former NBA player. So I also see that in him. I also see that in Steph, though. Steph is at just a different level because of his value to the team and how he has to continue to be Steph Curry for this team to be a playoff contender or a top team in the NBA. And it's going to be a bigger burden year after year until Steph just isn't that guy anymore.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, good point.
So for Klay, do you think that, because basically what he's saying is that he wants to be a Warrior for life, he may have cost himself a few bucks with that statement, but we did see what they did with Wiggins and Draymond to keep them in the family. Klay's going to have to come down a little bit from his current contract.
Way down.
And it sounds like he's comfortable with that. But I do wonder, it's going to be a longevity thing, right? It's going to be like, okay, I'll come down from 45 to 28 or to 30, but I'm not going to do no 2-year deal. It's going to be, I am going to be signed for several years. So I think that's going to be the tricky thing because he's a little bit older than Draymond. And obviously Steph is the oldest of all of them, but that's going to be an interesting thing when it comes to the length of the contract and how far you want to extend someone that. But I think all Warriors fans want him to be on the team forever. Like nobody wants him off this team.
I tried to trade him to the Lakers last year.
We tried to trade him a couple different times to different teams.
Yeah. Thank God we don't have Kevin Love, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we just talked about this last week. How I think I even said, like, I think I beat Slater to the punch again, where I said I don't think this guy wants to leave. He rides his boat to work every day, like he's
Yeah.
happy. He doesn't want to leave. And I just hope that the Warriors don't completely like disrespect him with the first offer, where it's like, we know you want to stay, so we're gonna lowball you, but we're gonna lowball you this badly. And Clay's like, what the hell?
I'm
Like
sure they've
18?
I'm sure they've already had discussions.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
whether it's through just the agent kind of, okay, what are you guys looking at? What are the books like? I can't imagine, like, because if they knew that was possibly what the Warriors are going to do, he wouldn't have been so happy in this conversation with Slater, I don't think.
Yeah. No, good point. Yeah. I mean, I hope, I think it's going to be more an offer that matches more of what Draymond and Wiggs did. But I mean, damn, I kind of wish he almost didn't say that, because what happens with contract years is players tend to play better, to do better in their next contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if this guy gets extended, and I don't know, contract year Klay could have been pretty good for the team, but we'll see. I mean, I hope he stays.
I mean, I who knows? We don't know if the Warriors are going to re-up him before. I would hope so, just to take away some of that pressure. But what happened with Jordan Poole last year. And I think that's probably what you're talking about. But I guess the last thing about Klay for me is his standing historically in this franchise. I was telling you last couple of weeks that I have this list of the greatest Warriors players of all time. And I went back and I found it, and I'm going to publish it on bspnmedia.com at some point before the season starts. And we'll talk about it after I'm done with it. But I didn't realize that I wrote the original list the year before they won the championship. And when I had asked Jim Barnett, the Warriors analyst, who's now on radio, I said, where does Klay and Jeff Mullins fit? So this is 2014. So this is, Klay had only been in the league for what, 3 years? When did Klay come into the league? 11?
11.
When did Draymond come into the league?
12 or 13.
12,
Probably 12.
probably, yeah. And so I said, is Klay better than Jeff? And he had Klay at very early in his career, already better than Jeff Mullins, who was a player for the Warriors in the 70s. And so, like, that was so long ago. That was like 9 years ago I did this list. And think about all the players that have come since then. Andre wasn't on that list. None of the Wiggins wasn't on that list. None of the big men, like Bogut and guys like that. So it's just so crazy how you go pre-championship to post-championship. And now, obviously, it's obvious that Klay is the best shooting guard in team history. Whereas when I first did this list, I had to ask Jim Barnett, who played with Jeff Mullins, who was better. And he said Klay at that point. So it's just crazy that, now we are 9 years later, I'm doing this again. Though I did have a rule, because I wanted it to be Golden State Warriors only. And so we include San Francisco in that, because they are in when they were in the Bay Area. I just wanted to exclude Philadelphia. And so I made it to where Wilt couldn't be on the team. I think I put it as like, you had to be a Warrior for 4 years. And so I did that. So I was like, yeah, we can't have Wilt. But now I got to change it, because I want KD on this team, obviously, and he only played 3 years for the Warriors, because he is arguably a top 3 Warriors player of all time just in those 3 years. So I have to finagle KD. I have to create some new rules and maybe lower it to 3 years as a Golden State Warrior. I think Wilt is still off. I think Wilt only played like 2.5 years in San Francisco. So. But yeah, so that'll be fun. I'll put that together. But it just shows you, like, Klay, no one take this dude for granted. He's the best shooting guard in Warriors history. And Steph and Klay are the all-time backcourt, obviously. And we'll go from there. But I should have that list out. All right, let's talk about this ESPN rank. What did they call it? NBA rank is what they called it.
Mm-hmm.
They put out the top 10. and I'll go back from number 10. Anthony Davis at number 10. Last year, he was number 20. LeBron James at number 9. Last year, he was number 6. Shea Gildress. Do you know how hard it is to not say Gildress when you say his name?
It's incredibly easy.
Say Shea Gilgeous Alexander. Last year was 48, and he is now number 8. Number 7, Kevin Durant. Last year he was number 8. Number 6, Jason Tatum. Last year he was number 7. Number 5, Steph Curry. Last year he was number 5. This surprised me a little bit. I thought he was going to be in the top 4. Now, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid. I may have, you could argue Steph ahead of Embiid as well. But this is 2 years in a row where Steph is behind Luka. And I get it. I understand Luka's tremendous. But I'm not so sure Luka's year last year, keeps him where he was. Well, I guess he did go down from 3 to 4. But if I'm, who cares about this kind of stuff? It's just to have content. I would have had Steph at 4 or 3, depending on what I thought about Embiid. But I'd have him ahead of Luka just because of last year. I didn't think Luka had a great year last year.
Yeah, the band did a top 25, and he was Steph number 3 for us, and I think he'll be number 3 for us again this year. Like, Luka didn't miss the playoffs, and Embiid has yet to get past the second round, and I don't think you can justify any of those guys above Steph right now. And Steph's continued to play really well in the playoffs as well.
All right, you need to go downstairs for a few seconds. So I'm going to read where the rest of the Warriors rank on this ESPN list. So for I think 5 Warriors made the NBA 100. We have Kevon Looney at number 88. So he's in the top 100. Pretty good. The Ringer actually had him a little bit higher on their list. We have CP. CP is 76th on the ESPN list. And interestingly, on the Ringer's list, he's 48th. So there's quite the discrepancy there. The Ringer was higher on him than any of these other lists. I guess CBS and Bleacher Report did theirs as well. And Klay, ESPN list, he is 41st. I wonder what Klay was last year. And we have Wiggins was not. Oh, Wiggins was 54th on the ESPN list. So he's even behind Klay, which is kind of interesting. And then Draymond is 55th. So actually there's 6 players on the Warriors that are on this list, but only Steph was in the top 10. Everybody else was kind of circling kind of the middle, except for Kevon Looney. And I don't know. I think Wiggins probably, because of his issues last year and him not really playing a lot because of the scenario with his family, that kind of dinged him. He only played 37 out of the 82 games. He may have a sneaky, it's going to be consistent Wiggs. He's a very consistent player, but I think him being around the team for, hopefully 65 versus, 70 games versus 37 will be helpful. I was just talking about, I think Wiggs is going to have Wiggs' impact on this team if he plays 65, 70 games versus the 37 he played last year. I think that's going to be a giant plus for the Warriors that people do not really expect or understand how valuable he is.
Yeah, Wiggs, a lot of people say, I don't know how many, I think we've said it a couple of times that people say he was the second best player in the finals, and that's a guy who didn't play in the 2022-23 season really. Like, what'd you say, 30-something games?
He had 37 games last year.
Then, like, someone who kind of fit his archetype was then really good in the next year's finals is Aaron Gordon. And so just having that type of player, that two-way player, energy player who's going to guard the best player and then still produce on offense is just literally what every championship team needs. and we were missing ours last year. And even when he came back, he wasn't fully himself. And then he even got a rib injury against the Lakers that he wasn't able to perform fully in the game 6. Or, I think he's going to, I think that lower rating this year, the guy was an all-star in 2 years ago. Did he play? Do I think he deserved that? No, not really. But, I think we need a version of that guy. And I think it's a realistic to expect a version of that guy. It's because he's not like he was injured last year. His father was sick, and so he missed time because of it. So I think it's very realistic to expect him to play 60+ games this season, to be at that level again. So I think his little ranking thing is a little low for my liking, but
yeah, that's the one thing. If you look at the difference from last year to this year, the hope is that Wiggs plays, almost twice as many of the games, and that's impactful, defensively, where they struggled at times last year, and because he's their best on-ball defender, and he's going to be the guy who has to, he's guarding the best player on the other team generally. So, all right. So when we come back next week, we will have 2 more basketball games to talk about. Actually, is it 2 more or is it 3 more? I'm going to look at the Warriors preseason schedule real quick, because I know on Friday they play the Lakers, and then the next day on Sunday, or I'm sorry, the next 2 days, Sunday, they play the Kings, and then the 18th they play the Kings again. Yeah, so we'll have 3 basketball games to kind of dig into for the next time that we come back here. So that'll be a lot of fun. All right. So for Bri, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.